Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast. I'm your host, Brian Dean. My guest today has spent 15 years at the intersection of payments, data, and emerging markets, advising Fortune 500 companies across 30 plus countries on where to place their bets. Lindsay Lear Tutson is the co-founder and managing director of Payments and Commerce Market Intelligence, or PCMI, a global strategy consultancy that cuts through the noise to help companies make smarter decisions in a rapidly changing industry. Lindsay, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian. Great to be here.
Well, we've got a lot to cover today, so let's just get right to it. You have a fascinating story. I'd love to learn more about your background and how you got into your current role in your new venture here, or not new venture, but your current company.
Great. Yeah. A lot of people ask me, how did I get into the payments industry? And I don't think anyone grows up and goes through school expecting to be in payments or even much knowledge that the payments industry exists. So really, it tracks back to my experience learning Spanish, actually, the Spanish, learning a foreign language. That was my one true passion all through school, all through college. I studied abroad in Argentina. I had such a fantastic experience there. I went back immediately after college and spent 5 years there. And my number one goal was learning Spanish to perfection and learning it fluently and just like native speakers spoke it. And so I would spend hours on the bus listening to the conversations around me, so intently focused and observing people. And I mean, I was doing research. I was doing research to help guide my behavior and experience day to day. And I immersed myself so deeply in that culture. I also traveled all throughout Latin America at the time. I moved back to the US and moved to Miami, wanting to get some kind of job related to Latin America. That was my main business skill. And I got a job at this little small research agency called America's Market Intelligence that was focused on business research in Latin America and helping companies understand how to do business there. And what I didn't realize was how well the training of learning a language prepared me for that job, because again, I honed my skill of observation and curiosity and quickly learned how that skill helped me help others navigate emerging markets. And so that passion for curiosity and learning and perfecting something to such a high degree brought me into the world of consulting, into research. We started doing projects in the payments industry, in e-commerce, in digital payments. We started working with MasterCard, was my first client back in 2012. And from there, it just took off. I mean, the digital payments industry grew rapidly in Latin America and emerging markets all over the world. And so I was able to bring my love and deep curiosity for different cultures and different societies into helping business leaders make decisions based on those small cultural nuances that you can only access from firsthand experience.
So I'm interested on your relocation, because I believe you're in California now. How did you end up from the East Coast to the West Coast?
So, it's funny. I'm from Maine originally. I moved from Maine to Argentina, maybe the most drastic move one could make. I then moved to Miami. That's where I got started with America's Market Intelligence, lived in Miami for a few years, and eventually just got, in my 20s, wanting to have all kinds of different experiences. I had the opportunity to move to San Francisco. Of course, that is the hotbed of fintech development at the time. And so it was really a personal decision to move to California, but it ended up being a very powerful business move. I still stayed with the same company, worked remotely, one of maybe the first remote workers, far before the pandemic, since 2015. And at that point, I was able to connect with real technology companies, big tech, fintechs, and starting even more intensively building the payments practice of America's Market Intelligence. And it also gave me more access to a global audience. Miami is very Latin America focused, which is where I was born and raised, but then moving to California helped me get access to a more global mindset. And as the business grew in 2022, we actually broke away from America's Market Intelligence. We branded the company as Payments and Commerce Market Intelligence and began operating officially at a global scale and not only focus on Latin America.
Well, that's a big move. Right? You work for a company, then you decide to start your own venture. What was the thing that made you flip the switch and just go into your own, to create your own company?
Well, the wonderful thing about AMI is that the founder of AMI, John Price, who's still today my close business partner, designed this beautifully innovative consulting model in which, as leaders in the company grow and begin to mature an industry practice, there was an exit path. So it was built into my career trajectory that you can actually spin off a vertical into your own venture. We decided to rebrand it because of the global presence. And so John and I today are co-owners of PCMI, still affiliated with the original business. And it's been the most wonderful journey for me. And I feel honored and privileged to have been given this opportunity and to have been able to bring it to fruition. The reason I felt empowered to do it was throughout the first 10 years of my career, again, that digital payments industry was growing rapidly and we were growing rapidly working with the biggest and best companies in that sector, providing data, insights, thought leadership, and strategic guidance, the need for that only became more intense as the industry became more complex. And so we had clients saying, hey, I love what you did for us in Latin America. Do you think you could replicate that in Southeast Asia or in Africa or in the Middle East or even in the US? So the beautiful thing about emerging markets is while every market is very different, many of the same lessons and patterns and principles apply. So we were able to expand from Latin America to emerging markets and even into the US and Europe in specific verticals where it makes sense.
That's quite a footprint. What an expansion. That's a great story to hear. Thanks for sharing that. Let's dive into your company a little bit more. So I read on your website you're not the bigger players in the industry, but there's your differentiation or success strategy for your company. What would you say differentiates you from the big fellas?
Yes, great question. We often go up against big four, the big three in competitive RFPs, and we win some and we lose some. The ones we win, the feedback we have from clients is that, we're a smaller team, we're more agile, we're highly responsive, and we are very dedicated to original insights. I've heard too often I've heard from clients, look, we spent $1 million on this engagement and we got back what we already knew. And so I think some of the pitfalls of the bigger companies is when you've been doing this for a long time and you've had a lot of success, it can be very tempting to recycle, reuse the same frameworks. And those frameworks may be brilliant, but they don't necessarily get you the nuanced, deep understanding of what's happening in Bolivia in e-commerce, right? Or in Vietnam in QR codes and digital wallets. Each project is so unique. Each client's need is so specific. It requires a true commitment to, once again, that curiosity and that observation and access to primary data, which is increasingly key to developing a strategy that really moves the needle for you.
Well, you're speaking with all these countries and, your footprint, you have to learn all the laws and regulations and compliance. And I can see where it can be super, super complicated. So you have to have boots on the ground to, gather the intelligence and make, informed decisions on how to proceed and your workflows, et cetera, that you guys have built for your analyses and presentations. I really appreciate what you say about not just I'll use my own word, rubber stamp, because I've seen that in the past too, working for a Fortune 500 company. We get a presentation. It's like, wow, we already knew this. And, you're spending a lot of money. So that's an excellent point. Thank you for sharing your
And Brian, I
differentiating
think
factors.
a key to our insights. So when we get feedback from clients saying, wow, this is the most powerful insight, or you really understand the market. I've never had someone translate the market in such a powerful, spot on way. One thing that is a differentiator there is you have to love it. You have to be genuinely curious and genuinely motivated by learning. And that's something that we really vet for in our hiring process. Everyone on the team has to just have a joy for discovery. If you don't have that innate joy, you're just going to go through the motions and the work will be good, but it most likely won't be great. And so that's something that's very important to us when we're putting the team, when we're hiring, when we're finding subcontractors and partners, and we're putting a team together to make sure that the project is really embedded with a true hunger for seeing what's really happening in this particular strategic question.
Excellent. You can't really, maybe you can train that skill or that desire, but it has to be innate. Someone has to have that naturally or natural curiosity, like founders, et cetera, right? So
I
you're
would say
almost like
so.
recruiting founders. Sorry, go ahead.
Founders and this job is very entrepreneurial in a sense. You have to be, again, have that innate desire to learn and then be able to convert it into meaning for the client. And so much of that, we have systems and we have frameworks and we have a pipeline of how we run projects to help clients get the results. But at the end of the day, the individual consultant, their voice is so important. And that helps drive uniqueness and special level of clarity that you only get when you're working with a team that is especially curated for whatever it is you're working.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I wanted to ask you, Lindsay, what is the state of your current company now? Like, how are you guys doing? What's happening? Any big news they'd like to share or big wins that you've had recently?
Sure. This year we opened a new office in Medellin, Colombia. And this was a big deal for us because it was our first. So the pandemic was very transformational for everyone. For us, coinciding with our global launch in 2022, it allowed us to, or the remote work revolution allowed us to scale very quickly and work in markets that we didn't have a physical office in. It allowed us to work with people all over the world, really in a very agile way. And that has helped us scale and get unprecedented global coverage. We also realize at the same time, like almost every company I think has, that in-person factor is really critical. And having a lowered focus on it was hurting us, in terms of culture, company culture, coherence, consistency, and driving what I was just mentioning about that love of learning and that curiosity, that culture, which is so dear to us. And so we actually opened a new office. Our main office is in Miami, and we opened an additional office in Medellin, Colombia, and hired a totally new cohort of analysts, to help feed our growth. Another thing that we've learned is that while it's time consuming, the best way to grow the business is from the ground up, from analysts coming in at the base level, learning our culture, learning how we work with clients, and then getting a fire for that entrepreneurial opportunity that the company offers, and then growing from there. So I'm really excited to have a brand new cohort of folks that we're working with, all in the same office. And yes, they just had hit their 90-day mark. So far, so good.
Great. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
So, I mean, I'm thinking of Latin America. I'm thinking about the Americas, but I'm just thinking I'm a foodie. So I'm thinking about all the great cuisine you've probably eaten over the years, Mexico, you've been there, Costa
Yeah.
Rica, Colombia, Argentina. Yeah. So awesome.
I'm very
Thanks.
partial to everything. Argentina has a place in my heart. And when I moved there, I was not a red meat eater, but definitely converted me into a red meat eater, 100%.
And you have to have the chimichurri with it, right?
Yes, the chimichurri is a great addition and a very nice red wine.
Yes. Yeah, it sounds great,
Malbec,
actually.
preferably.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit. You told us about your Colombia office. What are some of the key obstacles you've had to face, and what have you had to do to overcome those? How do you reach the next level?
Yeah. A lot of obstacles. I mean, I think in this AI world that we're now in, that has been, to be honest, the AI is changing every business, every industry in the world. Honestly, it's the central conversation in every industry. It both hurts and helps us. It hurts us to the extent that there's been already pretty significant scandals related to AI in which consulting companies are in the headlines saying it was discovered that, in a multi-hundreds of $1 million projects, portions of the work were AI hallucinations, and just pointing out that everyone is using these tools. Are we doing it correctly? Are we doing it with proper governance? Is it really adding value? Or are we just overcharging businesses using AI and putting a fancy brand name on it? That combined with what's already been snowballing in the several years of large companies with very prestigious brands not delivering the value that they promise. Again, I've heard that from clients over and over. So the reputation of the industry has been in jeopardy, I'd say, in the past couple of years. And it's really up to us and others it's a little bit of a reckoning. What value are we truly offering? Are we helping business leaders achieve their goals? And are we doing so with integrity and bringing true, fresh, valuable information that helps them do their job better. So that reputational aspect, which has been accelerated by AI, is one of the biggest challenges we deal with.
Yeah, I heard someone recently say that, on the AI topic is it's great to collate, consolidate, provide great insights or great, I guess, insights quickly, masses of data, but it doesn't really help you think. I mean, it can provide some insight, but it can't do a lot of the things for you. So sort of almost like a human in the middle experience, right? Where you wouldn't just generate a report and it's all generated via AI and like, here you go. Just here, where's my
Right.
money, right? Like, yeah, yeah.
And that brings me to where AI is actually helping us, because I'd say that clients can do so much on their own now. Everyone is using AI to empower their capabilities. But that means that people have more access to information than ever. But increasingly, they need professionals to help them make sense of that information, to tell them or to advise them on what information is real and reliable, what information is actually going to make a difference to the decisions that they need to make, interpreting that information. So we at PCMI, we invest a lot in coaching, in high performance coaching, both personally and professionally. And, one of the things that we say as a coach, what a main role of a coach is to, you have all the information potentially, but a coach helps you put that information into context. And that's very often what we're doing. Clients have a lot of access to data, but they don't always know what it means, how to use it, and what it means in the context that they're operating in. So AI is actually creating more chaos and heightening the need for experts who can settle you down and show you, look, this data right here is what is the lever that is impacting the outcome that you want to get. So let's pay attention to this and let's see how we can control or impact these data points to get the outcome that you're looking for.
Got it. Yeah. Well said. Thank you. So, Lindsay, one of the final few questions here, what are the future plans for your company and what's next for FinTech?
Okay, well, we're a small team today, but we work with the biggest and the best in the industry. If you look at our client list, it's quite impressive, to be honest. We work with the biggest companies in the industry, and so that tells me that we have a nearly unlimited growth ceiling. Small company today, our goal is to be growing 30% or more annually for the next 7 years to get to a particular level that we want to be at. And, when we launched PCMI, one of my slogans was, we work with the biggest and the best. And so we have to be the biggest and the best. And we're not the biggest today, but I do contend that we are the best or among the best, and that we deliver results that almost nobody has the capability of doing. And so we're banking on that. We're banking on that skill level and commitment. And another slogan that we put out there, it's all over our marketing, is that we aim to be the consultancy that is most committed to helping our clients achieve their goals. Now that, again, we work in the payments industry, but we work with individuals, with people. And part of that curiosity and love of learning is about connecting with individuals and helping them get to new heights in their career and helping their business get to new heights. So that's really what we're focused on, what we're committed to. Where to do that, we'll be making big investments in hiring, big investments in data, AI, and technology, and continuing to productize our services so the clients can more easily understand how we can help them. That's another challenge in the consulting industry, is really defining exactly what we do and how we can help you. So those are some of the challenges and some of the aspirations that we have. In terms of what's next for FinTech, we are in such an exciting time right now. One of the biggest trends that we're watching is the increasing diversity of payment rails and increasing competition. And that increasing competition also means more involvement from regulators. So we work very closely with our clients to help predict what this spider web of rails, what outcomes that will produce for our clients, and then how they need to engage regulators to make sure that they stay viable, stay competitive, and can continue operating successfully.
So I was going to ask you a little bit about the Rails comment. So you said the spider web of Rails. It sounds really complex. And can you give me like the elevator pitch for the Rails you're speaking about?
Yeah,
And
in the US, we don't see it quite as much because it's such a card-centric ecosystem. Almost everyone has a credit card or a debit card, and that dominates payments today. In other markets like Brazil, of course, India, most of Southeast Asia, Europe, increasingly Latin America, cards are losing market share and gaining, while other alternative payment systems are gaining relevance. And in some markets like India and Brazil, these other payment systems have become dominant, and it's happened in a very short amount of time. Local solutions have gained 50% or more market share in certain verticals. And so that's just creating a complex ecosystem where merchants have to deal with not only accepting cards and cash, but potentially a dozen different payment methods. That requires the entrance of fintechs and orchestrators and all these value-added service providers. Fraud detection becomes infinitely more complex. So it's just increasing complexity. And even though certain legacy players are losing market share, all electronic payment volumes are going up. And so people are spending more. And what's really in decline is cash. Cash declines, complexity just explodes. So we spend a lot of time observing these changes and figuring out what are the impacts on our clients and how can they prepare to either win or protect against potential.
Thank you. Thanks for that explanation. As you're talking about that, I've never been to India. Heard it's, great over there. Good food as well, like we were mentioning before. But there's so many means of, payment and exchange that it is getting complicated. I even read something recently. Isn't crypto another emerging, payment
Yes.
methodology? Yeah.
And so alongside, you have different payment rails emerging, and one of those are crypto rails, stablecoin rails, and that really opens up a whole totally different discussion. Money movement and how money is moving across borders, how people are getting paid, how small businesses and corporates are making payments with stablecoin and blockchain-based payments becoming increasingly legitimate, increasing recognition by regulators. There's still an enormous amount of complexity and a lot of lack of trust, but it's gaining legitimacy every day. I just moderated a panel on stablecoin and how financial institutions can make money from stablecoin. So it's something that everyone is starting to take a little bit more seriously.
Yeah.
And then, of course,
it's about time.
the next major revolution in payments is agentic payments and AI agents making financial and payment decisions for consumers and businesses. That is, in the next 5 years, we will be careening towards that future. Today, only small pieces of that flow are ready and available, but the major innovators and disruptors are actively working on enabling that future. It's still yet to be seen how that will unfold.
I know AI is here, but I didn't think I'd hear that comment. That's pretty, that's incredible to think
At
about
almost every industry conference, that is the main topic of conversation. And it's funny. And, another reason why a trusted partner, intelligence partner is so important is because if you were to go to any trade show or industry event, you would think that AI-enabled payments or agentic payments are 100% here and the dominant use case. However, it's not at all true. That's not at all the case. This is all hypothetical, speculative, and in construction. But what is available today, May 22nd, is a very, very small portion of what is being talked about in the media and in industry circles. So, and I see clients and companies get so lost in that noise because it's hard to decipher what's actually happening now, what's going to happen in 12 months and 24 months, and how do I actually leverage technology and how do I actually play a role?
Well, I use some jargon here, but it seems like FOMO and shiny new rock, right? Kind of combined in one. So everybody just wants to try to stay ahead of the curve and have the biggest, best thing. Yeah. Wow.
And
that was an eye opener.
It's interesting. Some of it is marketing. I want to be viewed as an innovative company and participate in these conversations. That's one angle of it. Some of it is actually strategic, laying the groundwork and building now for a potential future. Those are two different strategies that companies take. In the meantime, it can be really difficult to understand, okay, especially in emerging markets, most of this stuff comes out of the US. And so if you're in emerging markets, understanding what is reality, what can I actually take advantage of? What do I actually need to do to prepare? And when will these changes come to my market? These are the types of questions that we help clients answer.
A lot of great stuff you guys are doing, keeping folks advised about the future and helping them plan their path. That's great, Lindsay. So final question here. If you could change anything about your industry, what would you change?
For talking about the payments industry, fraud really hurts the industry. That's maybe an easy or oversimplified answer, but fraud is a massive problem, and it makes everything more expensive. It puts everyone at risk and it hurts everyone involved. And, if we could just eliminate fraud or find truly that's a magic wand solution, right? Or be able to more effectively predict how fraudsters will act, so many pains in the payments industry would be solved. Trust payments at the end of the day comes down to who can you trust to move your money. So if fraud were a non-issue, it would be a different industry. It would be a different industry. So fraud continues to be, especially in lower trust markets, where fraud or just the perception of fraud really holds back progress of the entire industry. That's one main issue. The other main issue is regulators and regulators' misunderstanding, or not misunderstanding, lack of understanding of technology, risk, and the benefit that digital payments can bring to an economy. There's a lot of, again, that risk and trust question is perhaps over-indexed by regulators. They have a job to protect consumers, and of course that makes perfect sense, but it often comes at a great cost, which is hurting consumers even more. So making it difficult for fintechs, making it difficult for merchants, and protecting legacy institutions giving them perhaps an unfair advantage, creating low levels of competition. All this holds back innovation and ultimately hurts consumers and businesses.
Okay, well, Lindsay, thank you so much for sharing that. That's everybody. I always ask that on these podcasts, and I know everybody has a different perspective depending on what vertical they're in. But I certainly appreciate your time today, and thank you so much sharing about your company, PCMI, and helping me to become more intelligent, no pun intended, on the payments industry and your company. And you definitely have a great and compelling story that I'm sure our audience is going to love. So, Lindsay, if someone wants to get a hold of you, learn more about your company or about you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Yes, well, you're welcome to contact me on LinkedIn. You have my name there, Lindsay Lear-Tutson, and our website is paymentscmi.com. Get in touch there as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us today, and thanks everyone for listening in.
Thank you, Brian.